Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of our Open Innovation Thursdays. My name is Marisol Menendez, an expert and enthusiast about open innovation. I'm a practitioner with my company, Vilacatu, and I'm lucky enough to have this opportunity to interview every Thursday experts in the world of open innovation that are also the authors of chapters of the Oxford Handbook of Open Innovation. Today, I'm very happy because I'm interviewing Wim Vanhaverbeke. Wim, how are you today?
I'm fine. So thank you very much for having me here today. So on chapter 53. So it's great to be back because I have been already for a few chapters, but I'm back here and I'm very happy to be able to comment a little bit on chapter 53. Yeah.
We always like to have these light conversations about open innovation with relevant people, but you are special besides because you are part of the editorial team of the book. So here you are as co-author of the chapter. We will talk about it, but we will keep in mind also that you are editor of the book and also, of course, part of the important players of the ecosystems of open innovation. So first things first, we always like to ask our guests, even if you have been here before, but for those who might have never listened to the podcast, can you please introduce yourself? You can maybe explain what do you do, what's your role, or what are you working on, and maybe a little bit about your path to open innovation.
Well, very short. I'm Wim Vanhaverbeke. I'm located in Antwerp, in Belgium. I have been working until a few weeks ago at the University of Antwerp. In innovation management, in strategy, also in the Antwerp Management School, so teaching there and so on. I always have been focusing on external innovation management, so starting with long before Henry's initial book on corporate venturing, external corporate venturing, and that's when in 2003 Henry came up with published a new book, Open Innovation. Open Innovation. I was probably one of the very first one to see that this was a really important book, right? Because I was in companies living, let us say, open innovation already before the term was invented. And so in 2004, Henry and I had a PDW on the Academy of Management in New Orleans, and that was that's the start of our collaboration. So I've been working with Henry for 2 decades, and we have been doing lots of things. So both on the practitioner side with the European Innovation Forum, but also on the academic side, writing 4 books, editing 4 books, among which the handbook, of course. And yes, things have been changing also because the focus has been shifting, let's say, from open innovation to more complex ecosystems, to the internal management of open innovation. Digitalization has been coming in there. And yeah, I think open innovation and let's say working with more partners, probably in different ways than originally, but still it's very, very important. And you see that companies are struggling to work with that. I don't hear you.
Sorry.
No,
I know and appreciate all your efforts in open innovation. In fact, I've been how do you say, in the receiving end of all your efforts, because when I was a practitioner at BBVA, you helped us, you helped me to get this down-to-earth vision on how to integrate these open innovation practices into the real world. And also for me, in my first hand, you were very key to try to put a little foot in the academic world, which for me before that was completely a different world, you know? So I know that Henry is very active in this effort on closing the gap between academia and practice, but I also feel and appreciate and thank you right now for your effort and your role in that as well, because for me, at least in my first-hand experience, has been critical, and I know that the practice world is better because of you. In particular, for example, inspiring part of your work is your work with SMEs. Your work in Africa as well, which is, I think, sometimes forgotten as a really intense and a very good opportunity to developing this. So thank you very much, Wim, for all your work.
I fully agree that let's say what I call the rural entrepreneurship, and so let's say low income entrepreneurship is a very fruitful area for open innovation. Yeah.
And well, of course, you mentioned that you also co-author many books and authored by yourself,
Hmm.
like the one about open innovation and SMEs, for example, which is very interesting here. But today we're talking about chapter number 53, which
Yeah.
is, by the way, the first chapter of the last section of the book. We are getting close. It's crazy that we are already in chapter 53.
Hmm.
This section number 10, is called Challenges, Critiques, and Suggestions.
Hmm.
This is very interesting because we talk a lot about not only talking about the good of open innovation, but
Yeah.
learn about mistakes. It's an effort that you also do together with Henry, lots of to discuss about the failures. And
Hmm.
your chapter is called Overcoming Organizational Obstacles to Open Innovation Success.
Hmm.
It's titled. I always say called because this is my Spanish mindset thinking. So the title, Overcoming Organizational Obstacles to Open Innovation Success.
Yeah.
You co-wrote this chapter together with Henry Chesbrough, Joe West, and Agnieszka Radziwiłł. So this is like the stellar chapter with
Hmm.
all the editors of the book in action,
Hmm.
talking about overcoming organizational success. Can you tell us a little bit about the story? How come this chapter came to be for the book in this
Yeah.
section and in this place together with the four of you?
Well, we wanted to have some chapters where we try to understand that open innovation is not only about the benefits or failures, right? But it's also about how to manage it. And we can talk a lot about how open innovation is benefiting companies in all kinds of directions. There has been a lot of publications on that one. Failures have been less be exposed, but there are other chapters focusing on failures. And here we wanted to really to show that open innovation is usually not working in companies because of managerial issues. And this is just open innovation, just like many other items in management. You have to manage it. Open innovation is not the benefits of open innovation are not generated automatically. You really have to manage it in a very structured way. And we see that a lot of companies are not ready for doing that. And so we also want to warn companies, okay, if you start with open innovation, it may lead you to very beautiful results, but only if you're prepared to manage it. And so this is a crucial message that we wanted to have in, let's say, in the last part of the handbook, right? So, and it's also, yeah, taking people away from the dream of open innovation that everything, because if you collaborate, that you will have results. No, it's not because you collaborate, you have results. There is a potential there, but you have to realize it, you have to manage it, you have to organize it. And if you don't do it in the right way, you probably will end up with a bigger mistake than if you do it on your own. Hmm?
Yeah, I like this concept about really figuring yourself if you are ready to do what is required to do.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
remember having this discussion with you, talking about my own methodology. And you told me like there are very clear signals that you are ready to do what you need to do, which are having an organization, having a budget, no, preparing the
Hmm.
organization for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are the learnings, no, for you with this chapter? What are you, all four of you are trying to explain? What's this
Mhm.
chapter about when we're talking about the organizational
Mhm.
obstacles of open innovation success?
Okay, so we try to bundle them, right? So in different areas of obstacles. So it's called obstacles or overcoming obstacles in open innovation success, open innovation management success, and we have bundled them in different topics. So the first one is strategic alignment, so it's strategy obstacles. Second is process-related obstacles, because in the process itself, you see a lot of problems popping up. Capability related, because a lot of companies start open innovation without the right capabilities. Then also some back end obstacles, because you really have to manage, let's say, the inside in, I would call it, right? Like Henry calls it later, the inside in. So it's not enough to have an open innovation team, but you have to be able to translate, let's say, the learnings into the business unit that really have to generate the money then. The particle obstacles, right? And that's the last part, right? There's in partnering, sorry, not the partner obstacles, partnering obstacles. So if I have the opportunity to go quickly through them, I think one area that has been neglected significantly also in the open innovation literature is the fact that open innovations fits somewhere. An open innovation project fits into the strategy. And corporate strategy can take different horizons. Where we have the horizon 1, 2, and 3. It's typical scheme. But then, if you're working in horizon 1 compared to horizon 3, you're focusing on completely different objectives strategically, and you have to. The risk in each of these. So the level of the risk in each of these projects is quite different. You have to manage in a different way. You also have to target in a different way. You have to partner with different partners, probably with universities for very risky projects, or let's say early stage ventures. But the way you connect with them, because the risk is so high, is in a completely different way than when you just go for an incremental innovation. But very few articles have been focusing on that. We just have been focusing on projects, open innovation projects, and just how to manage the project. So that's one thing. Also, business model misalignment, right? Or business model innovation capabilities that are not there in the company. You see what we call the dominant logic, right, in a lot of companies. And then they are unable to figure out not the technology, but they are not able to figure out how to create value, how to capture value, how to change this business model. And so the innovation capability is not on the technology side, but on the business model side, so pretty bad. Second, if we go to the process-related obstacles, that's more about the process of working through open innovation. There you see a lot of them. I cannot go in all the details, but you can already imagine that ineffective partner engagement is very important. So you have to motivate your partners, attract your partners. You have to sustain commitment, right? And that's not easy. Partners have very good reasons sometimes to walk away from you, right? And so this is partner management. Coordination costs. Working together with companies is not easy. You have to coordinate, and coordination costs can be very high. So communication there, right? So complexity may be high. So how to handle that and to coordinate in an appropriate way, and working together with partners is different than working internally with teams, right? So companies are not ready for that. And then time constraints, right? Really invest time in long-term commitment or digital capabilities which help to bring together partners, right? So in a very easy way. So people like that, and also risk of knowledge leakage also. So you don't have the protection mechanism, right? To keep the IP that you really want to keep inside, and to reduce the leakage. So to keep that in the company. So a lot of companies have their problems. So these are already two of these blocks. The third one is related to capability. So first, you still have. It's not because you source outside that you don't have to have internal R&D. So you still have to have that kind of absorptive capacity, or like we call it, to know what is there outside, to absorb it inside. But also what you call desorptive capacity. That means things that you don't use, right? You should be able to push it outside and to make sure that other companies can use it. And this is not obvious, right? It takes quite a lot of effort for companies to do that correctly. Yeah? And then, of course, what we call dynamic capabilities, how to sense good technology, to see it, and then to integrate it, right? So these kind of things. If I move very quickly to the fourth block, right? So backend obstacles, that's a very important one where Henry has been working a lot on, let's say, in the last few years. Internal silos, right? And poor knowledge transfer, not with the partners, but with the internal company. Insufficient connection of the open innovation teams with the business units, so that it's not translated into the business unit that try to create value based on the open innovations, right? So and then budgeting cycles that's usually very rigid, but open innovation can be all of a sudden you have to grasp the opportunity, and small firms are not waiting, right? So you have to grasp it, but you have budget cycles of a whole year, so that can be very devastating. And then also senior management attention. Senior managers prefer to work with the current businesses, with the running businesses, but sometimes with open innovation, you really have to push into the explorative phase, right? So not in the exploitation, and really support. As a senior manager, you have to really support this initiative in open innovation. So this is really, really important. So the last one is then partnering obstacles. You see that many firms lack open innovation processes, partnership capacity, right? So they don't know how to work with, so it's like open innovation readiness. They don't have this capacity to learn how to work with partners. The innovation climate, right, that they have to support and so on. That's clearly in a lot of companies not the case. So insufficient also supporting functions. You have to have a legal so the legal department should not be an enemy. It should be a strategic partner in open innovation, right? So because you have to have all these contracts that should enable you to work together with the partners. Purchasing department can be very limiting, can be very disturbing for open innovation initiatives, human resource management units and so on. So they all have to be focusing in the same direction to be more open to work with partners and so on, and to support, let's say, the open innovation activities. And many companies don't do that. The open innovation is just a team play there for the open innovation teams, and that's it. No. So you have to integrate it into the company. And then lack of trust between partners, building trust between partners is a very, very difficult one. And then also cultural size difference as last one. Partners can be very different in size, can be different in culture. And we have seen many times, right, that culture clashes because a small firm has to go quickly. The large firm needs a lot of time to decide about things, or different cultures, right, about trust, about practices. People from Mexico, people from Germany, uh, people from Belgium, people from let's say Singapore. They have different backgrounds on how to collaborate, and this is clashing too. And that's something we have to be that's something we have to manage. So I gave you an overview of all these kind of obstacles. I hope I didn't scare you. Uh, the idea is to overcome it and be sure. We also give some ideas how you eventually can do that. Okay.
Of course, and you know, it's perfect that this chapter is almost towards the end of the book, because at the end
Mhm.
we are also gathering information that we've been discussing in all these past
Mhm.
chapters. And
Yeah.
it, as a practitioner, for me at least, totally makes sense. And it's a very, you can even say, an easy guide into seeing where are we so far in terms of connecting, no? It also makes a lot of sense for me, because you're talking about what I discuss in my chapter, which is making sure strategy is aligned, your innovation strategy contributes to your company strategy, that you're interconnected in the right way with your partners, that you have the right processes, that you have the right way to measure this, and then establish the right kind of connections around. These are the basic elements. You also talk about some interesting concepts that I also been trying to learn and really grasp um, in my geeky side of open innovation, which are absorptive capacity, like dynamic capabilities, which are, I think, the kind of elements that you use to measure at the end how you are capturing the value of open innovation. I think this chapter is both for academics and for practitioners. Do you think there's any specific line of research in terms of academia that you would advise other academics to follow on, to keep opening doors, researching from this?
Well, I think there are two things to do. First, let me be very brief on the practical side. The way I have been mentioning it in 5 categories, and basically you can make a checklist already. So what I would advise to managers is make that checklist and see how far you go on each of them. So maybe also do a kind of survey, right, in your company
That
and
was
see
going to
how.
be my second
Yeah.
question, but you're
Uh,
answering it. It's right.
so I think the chapter gives you a very good checklist, right? So of where you are and where, and maybe we should then, and then that brings me. That's why I started with the practical side. That brings me to the academic side, because we can we can fi- we can uh, uh, we can have some conceptual papers on this, right? In terms of absorptive capacity, dynamic capability, so you can connect it to what is already existing. But I think more importantly is that we should um, show how companies are doing or not doing fine on this list, let's say, of obstacles and how to overcome it. And what I would suggest for uh, academics is let's work together with companies. Let's do this kind of checklist. Let's have this kind of service within larger companies, right, or in different companies, and make a sample, right? Make a kind of a data set, And based on the data set, then you can see you would have for the first time an overview of the biggest problems in big companies, for instance, right? So where do they do fine, where they don't find? Of course, it's self monitored, so it's it's a it's a survey that they fill in themselves, but still, it's a self-evaluation. But still, it would give you a priority of all the problems that they have, and then it will be interesting to go back to the companies where you see that there is good practices, where they are doing fine, and then trying to understand what are the good practices here and how do they overcome them. And then it would be at the same time something very valuable because you structured all the obstacles very well. Second, it will be practical because you help companies to show what are good practices and why the good practices are there. Going back to theory, it would then be interesting to see how good practices lead back to or can be integrated again into the classical concepts like dynamic capabilities, this disorptive capability, which is less explored, absorptive capacity, for instance, because we talk a lot, and that's also something we don't do very well in academia. We talk a lot about absorptive capacity, but when you come into a company, nobody understands you. So
Mhm.
you have to have
I
that
had
capability.
that problem. I had that
Yeah,
problem for a time.
I'm pretty sure. So you have to be able as a academic, you have to be able to say, okay, absorptive capacity. I will not talk about that, but it means okay, how well are you able to know what is over there and to bring it into the company, whatever that means, right? So you have to
To make it
translate it,
your
and
own.
yeah, and it's not easy to do that, but you have to do it, right? And otherwise, you're never gonna make that link with practitioners, right? So these are a few ideas. I don't say that is the way to go, but it's maybe one way to go.
Thank you very much, Bim. We're almost finished. All good conversations come to an end. And
Sure.
of course, I think this might be the last time we talk to you when we are discussing the chapter. We will keep our conversations going around open innovation. So we might invite you to talk again. But we are already in chapter 53. As an editor of the book, as a key player in the open innovation ecosystem, any final words of advice or anything you want us to take in our hearts just to close this session?
Well, reflecting on the handbook again, I think the handbook is a very interesting piece because there's something there for everybody, right? That's one thing, and it's really like a Bible for open innovation. That's one thing. Second thing is I have been focusing now on two times already, and there is more coming on doctoral colloquia based on that book here. So I did that. Henry did it already together with Agnieszka. I did it already together with Agnieszka. I did it once in China on my own, and there is more coming next year in Beijing, for instance, next year in May. So where we have a big conference, the Inotech conference. And this is interesting because this book gives you sufficient, yeah, it's sufficiently large. It has a lot of choices that you can make to shape your the doctoral colloquium, and it's a very nice book for keeping people or keeping young people engaged into open innovation. So these are the recent chapters, recent evolutions. So we don't have to go back to a book of 20 years old. We really have now a handbook, which is really interesting for PhD students, younger scholars, and so on. So they can learn a lot there through a colloquium. But also for practitioners, I think there's quite a lot in there. And I hope that with your videos, practitioners get more engaged in reading the handbook.
Yeah, and also we know that, for example, in Berkeley, they were using the chapters of this podcast to study with young
Yeah,
scholars, so
yeah.
you can get a first impression
Mhm.
on what's this chapter about and better assimilate. So of course we
Exactly.
invite everyone, but I also invite you, Bim, to advise people to listen to this podcast. I think they are very long lasting in terms of time. We are not they will last for a time in the internet, so to our future selves who might be
Yeah.
listening this in some months on, I think this is relevant, no? And I advise everyone to listen to them, invite you
Mhm.
to share it with your students. And as you were saying, we are also sharing it with practitioners, and we are creating a version in Spanish discussing the
Mm.
chapters. So we are also bringing this knowledge in the Spanish-speaking world and trying to bring back the learnings and experience in all these companies. So I think the book per se is also an open innovation experiment at a large scale.
Yeah.
And I hope that we, together with this work, we keep contributing to that, to all your effort. As I said in the very beginning, as a community, we thank you, Henry, Agnieszka, and Joel, and of course you particularly for all your work, all the support that you gave me throughout my own career as well,
My
which
pleasure.
has been very important. And thank you, Wim. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much. And send me a link and I will spread the news. Okay.
Thank you very much. And see you everyone in the next chapter. Not that many to go to close the book for good, but we will keep our conversations going. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.